As a disclaimer, Monster Fuckers Anonymous is indeed about wanting to love and have sex with monsters, but we want to make things extremely clear from the get-go. The monsters we will be selecting will be sentient and able to consent. Not all of the chosen monsters will be sapient, but we will not be endorsing zoophilia or bestiality. Anthropologically, monsters all around the world, and media representations of them, have had many racial and sociological implications. We will be as transparent and ethical as possible, while also sex positive and mostly having fun.
Monsters. Creatures feared all around the world in folklore and myths. Terrifying beings such as the fiendish and frightening Fey, demonic devils, sultry sirens, hazardous harpies, and countless chaotic creatures coming from crevices of every continent. As long as stories have existed, there's been one pressing question that has remained unanswered by scholars for generations. One powerful thought that has plagued our minds for millennia. Can we fuck these monsters? That is what we're here to find out today. Welcome to Monster Fuckers Anonymous.
Hello, one and all, to another fantastic, wonderful, excellent, amazing, stupendous episode of MFA, aka Monster Fuckers Anonymous, a show where we talk about monsters, their lore, their looks, everything about them, and then we rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 of how much you should have sex with them. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, and some of them are mediocre, but all of them are sexy. I am your colorful creature consultant cleric, here to talk about monsters in weird scenarios, and with me, as always, my co-host, the wind beneath my wings, the one who keeps me centered, our technical analyst, Joe.
I smell bad. I smell really bad.
Why do you smell bad today?
I didn't shower yet, and it's just really hot.
Yeah, well, that's your problem, not this recording's problem. But yeah, welcome back to another episode. We're excited to start recording again. As always, business, top of the round. Thank you to everyone who supports us on Ko-fi. We're having a lot of fun with things that we're posting on there, like the outtakes, the rankings of everything. We're going to start posting, hopefully working on the summer, on the drunk episode that our Ko-fi supporters helped to fundraise for, which will be an interesting thing. We have to have like Kez babysit us during that. It's going to be a disaster, that episode. But if you wanted to listen to it, then you got to support us on Ko-fi. So Joe, can you help us shout out the people who supported us on Ko-fi?
If you want to hear me and Cleric Blackout, then you're going to want to be specifically the two people that are supporting us on Ko-fi right now, which is Akima and Funzo Sir Ali. If we die, you have to pay for the funeral rights and the alcohol poisoning medical bills. We are American, so it's going to be particularly fucked.
Yeah, it's a lot. Listen, funerals, a lot. I'm not going to get into that. But with that little bit of business out of the way, Joe, do you know what we're talking about today?
Talk about.
What was that? What was that?
We're gonna talk about.
What?
I don't know.
You don't know? Again?
I don't know.
Joe.
I don't know.
Oh no, we don't know. We've forgotten. It seems like we've forgotten something so important, like what the topic is today. God, how can we remember?
I'm feeling this glamour affecting my memory.
Yeah,
this fairy dust.
Oh, I'm so confused, but something is appearing from the ground. Is it a little sprout? Oh, now the sprout's becoming a big, huge fucking tree with beautiful flowers. And then what's sprouting from the top of that beautiful tree, the beautiful flowers, is that our friend Ibrahim?
Hello! Jack and the Beanstalk over here.
Ibrahim, can you come down and help join us for a recording and tell us what we're supposed to be talking about?
You're emitting a lot of color.
It's okay. You gotta climb. Okay, you gotta climb down, Ibrahim. You gotta climb down.
I'm gonna jump.
No. Okay. Joe, get the pen.
Hey, it's me.
Hey.
Well,
It's
yes.
amazing how all those leaves and vines grabbed me and brought me down safely. That was incredible.
Honestly, incredible and beautiful. And thank you to our friend Ibrahim for joining us on today's episode. Ibrahim, can you shout out some of the things that you're doing?
Hello, my name is Ibrahim. I am on TikTok at Ibrahim_MA. I make funny videos, thirst traps, and other stuff. I am also on Prayers in the Static, which is a bi-weekly actual play stream and eventually podcast that is building a really interesting sci-fi world, and I am producing and starring in that. And you can check that out at the Bards and Brews channel, or you can just search Prayers in the Static, and you can find our Twitter and find what we're up to over there. Yeah, lots of cool stuff going on.
Yeah. Ibrahim is amazing, our wonderful friend. Ibrahim, can you tell us what we're supposed to be talking about today? Because me and Joe seem to have forgotten.
Oh, well, of course I can. We're talking about Fey.
Ooh, the Fey. The Fey are such an interesting concept in general that usually suck.
They do suck.
I disagree.
Ibrahim, what attracts you to the Fey?
Well, the Fae are mysterious, they're otherworldly, they usually have some sort of alternative morality that is almost inscrutable to us lowly humans. And they've got just a lot of really interesting nature, but also mystic vibes. And yeah, I think they're nifty.
I think they're nifty. I think they're neat. I can't help to agree. I love nature. Actually, I take that back. I'm a city kid. I don't love nature. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. I hate nature. Last time I went on a hike, someone pointed a knife at me and then told me to pick a tree. I'm good.
What does that mean?
That's an actual story. I'll tell you guys later about this. Join us on the after show. No.
I also hate nature. Nature sucks. It is always trying to kill you. I think that nature is best appreciated with a healthy dose of fear. You should always remember this is something that wants to kill you, and just that should be your lodestone, your guiding star.
And honestly, every time you have a healthy fear of something, makes you a little bit attracted to it. So we're going to talk about 3 different Fey creatures today. I brought one, Joe brought one, and Ibrahim has brought one that we have no idea about, which I'm excited to hear, which is Ibrahim's choice. But I think we've done a little bit of posturing already, so let's dive in to the episode. We ready?
No.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, take your time.
Yeah.
Let me do your acid reflux.
Let's take like 50.
Let's take 50. Yeah, we'll do a quick 15-minute break. All right, we're going to pause recording. And all right, we're back from our 15-minute break. I took a shower. Apparently, Joe still smells. So
I took a shit in the shower.
You took a shit? You waffle stomped?
Anyway, so the creature.
That's the intro you want? That's the segue you want? Go for it. Of course.
The creature I will be talking about today is perhaps the fairy representative, the fairy queen of the Sealy Court and all that, which is Fey. I'll be talking about Titania specifically as a representative of the fairies. Titania is a proud creature and is much of a force to contend with as her husband, Oberon. She and Oberon are engaged in a marital quarrel over which of them should have the keeping of an Indian changeling boy. It is this quarrel that drives the plot of Midsummer's Night Dream, creating mix-ups and confusion among the other characters in the play. Although she's graceful and physically delicate, she stands up forcefully to her very powerful husband, refusing to hand over the boy she has adopted, in the face of his strenuous efforts to make her do so. She tells him in robust language and in no uncertain terms to back the fuck off. Despite arrangements of consensual extramarital relationships, she and her husband regularly fight, even beyond the play. Her worries about their fights extend to the adverse consequences to the environment, making her somewhat of an eco-warrior icon.
Titania. I've actually never listened to Midsummer's Night Dream, or whatever it's called. I don't even remotely know. So can you give a little bit of the plot, Joe? Is there any more details you'd like to include?
Yeah, so if you have ever read anything by Shakespeare, who's this like very fairly new name, just like in the playwright community, A Midsummer's Night Dream, it has had many retellings, many different sort of movies. Like there's a Los Angeles retelling of the fucking characters. It's wild. I love it. It is a story about what was that?
Oh, sorry. I didn't.
No, you're good. You're good.
The Lin-Manuel Miranda of his time.
No. I mean, probably. I don't know. How many fascist regimes did Shakespeare help fund? The story of Midsummer's Night Dream is about 4 lovers of Athens and how Hermia wants to be married to Lysander, but Lysander, Hermia's dad, doesn't like. Hermia's dad wants her to marry Demetrius, and Hermia's best friend Helena loves Demetrius, but Demetrius loves Hermia. So, it's like a soap opera. It's Sex in the City, basically, at the start, but in Athens.
Okay, here's the thing, though. That just sounds like Romeo and Juliet. Did he just rip off his own work?
Of course. I don't know which one he wrote first, but... and on top of that storyline, there is also sort of this war between Titania, the fairy queen, and her husband, the fairy queen, the fairy king. Essentially, it is how these fairies, in seemingly inconsequential sort of actions towards each other, directly affect the 4 lovers, as well as just straight up a group of tradesmen who are doing a play. Titania, however, throughout most of the play, she has this really strong start of this boy came from literally an Indian votress of mine, like a handmaiden or like a sort of right-hand woman, and you're trying to steal him from me so that you can turn him into a soldier. And then Oberon is like, yeah, obviously. So I'm going to make you fall in love with a monster and embarrass you, and I'm going to just make you forget about all of that so that I can steal the changeling boy. And changelings in Fey, interestingly, are human children who are exposed to fairies. So that's why they're called changelings, but I don't know if he's ever exhibited actual D&D changeling shapeshifter, whatever. So most of the play, Titania is fucking a donkey man. So that being said, I have many sort of reservations about her actual storyline, but herself, we're gonna fucking talk about how awesome she is.
All right. First of all, Donkey Boy, that means I have a chance.
I don't know what that means.
Neither. Well,
it means Cleric is a proud Democrat, and Cleric has a Let's Go Joe bumper sticker on the car he doesn't have.
That's the worst thing you've said to me. You've said a lot of terrible things to me. That's the worst thing you've said to me in a while. Joe, tell us more about Titania.
Titania, yeah. What's up with Titania?
So, we're going to talk her up. We're going to sort of work on a retelling. We're going to provide a scenario. Titania is this extremely intimidating polyamorous. She did not go to college. This is the hippie anarchist girl queen pussy boss that is surrounded by other beautiful nature bitches who are called, they're all non-binary. Their names are Peas Blossom and Moth. And
beautiful.
She's just constantly surrounded by dancers and theater kids, and she's just yes, dance for me, Peas Blossom, and a mustard seed. And they all do it because she's iconic and they love her, and her worries with her boyfriend, or her husband rather. The one thing is with this relationship, and just straight off the bat, and I know I'm talking to 2 monogamous people right now, is that she's married. She's fully married to an established guy who may or may not care about you, but in some effect, you will probably be listening to them fight every now and then, or a lot, every day. Why are they married? It's because they're both they're not rich necessarily, but they are eternally bound to each other by the laws of magic. And
it's not a happy marriage. This isn't a happy,
This is an arrangement. This is, what's it called? This is an arrangement.
You just know.
Right. They've come to an agreement, but
yes,
it's not quite. Yeah,
it's a political marriage.
Right. Which I've said many times before, I would prefer to be in a political marriage than an actual one for romance, because I want to do whatever I want. And for the most part, the both of them do whatever they want. Oberon has this bromance with a satyr, a faun, and the faun, Puck, is the one that basically tricks Titania into falling in love with Nick Bottom, who turns Nick Bottom into a donkey man. And
So Oberon's a top.
so Oberon's a top, and Titania's a power bottom. And if you just put two tops in a room, no matter what, it's just not going to be good.
Doesn't really work out.
Turns into a pissing match every time.
No.
Huge pissing match. It affects the environment and the world. The global warming is a response to this pissing match.
So here's my question for you. This is what I want to concoct a scenario for us, kind of like vibe. So one is, does Oberon get jealous if Titania takes other lovers?
So they both. I mean, as far as I understand, they both get jealous, but Oberon has this. The specific argument in the beginning is, I want this boy because she's the daughter of my best friend or a potential lesbian lover, or I want to turn him into a fucking soldier. But also, there is this sort of secret thing that gets overlooked every now and then, which is Titania hooked up with Hermia's dad, and Oberon has hooked up with Hermia's dad's current wife. So, like, there's this whole thing. So Oberon just, like, I don't think he brings it up all the time, but he usually adds that as, like, another point of contention of, like, you're not only going to let me take this boy to be my personal soldier, but also you're going to fuck this other person's father, dad. And she's like, you are literally fucking that same person's wife. So, like, it doesn't matter. We're causing the world to end because of this.
It's a team effort, really.
So here's what I'm hearing. Here's the scenario that I'm concocting. Here's the thing I'm thinking about. So I'm going to use where I live as an example. You're in New York, right? You're walking down the street. Right. You're walking down Broadway, shit like that. No one hangs out in Times Square. But
can you be a little bit more New York?
Yeah, I can do it. So you're walking down. So you're walking down that kind of area, and you bump into somebody. And you're like, "Ow, what the fuck?" And it's this like beautiful woman. She's wearing like the most lavish green dress. Like, she already in a city of pretentiousness. She's already like stunning. She's making the crowds move around her, and she sees you, and you're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bump into you." Blah blah. And she's like, "Wow, it's okay. Listen, I scuffed your clothes. Let me get you something new." And
you're gonna fucking dance and sing for me forever, fairy boy.
She has this New York accent. She's like, "Yo, you want to dance with me now? Yo, do your little twirling shit like the Rockefeller, the Rockettes."
What's all that movement back there? What's all that movement back there?
You moving. When I knocked into you, did a little twirl, and I was like, "Damn, you got it."
But yeah,
damn, I see it from the front.
New York Titania, that's the only one I'm accepting. Have you ever introduced Titania to any of the games? I'm only using New York Titania. Fuck out of here. Fuck out of here. Forget about everything else. So yeah, Titania ends up coming into, like, you end up going to this beautiful relationship. Like, she like walked you through it, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is like this rich girl. She's picking me up. Like, she's opening up these worlds to me." And she's like, "Oh," she also is very open in front about it. She's like, "Hey, I'm actually married, but we're technically in an open relationship." She's very open about it. She tells you about it. And so she's like, "Okay, cool. I accept that. That's cool. I know you have other lovers. I'll have other lovers." But then one day you go over to her penthouse, because of course she has a fucking penthouse. You walk in, and as soon as shit is being thrown, things are being scattered, everything, there's loud arguments, and you just see, again, this very beautiful man walking up, and they're just having this very these two people are having a very violent argument. You're like, "Oh my god, should I step in the middle of it?" And then, like, there's other lovers who are there who are just like, no, just let them do this. And they're just having, so now you're entered into this very awkward thing, and now there's also, like, as soon as that argument's done, the guy leaves, but then he, like, clocks you in the eye, and suddenly you're fired from your job, and, like, you're in between, like, all this stuff. You're like, "What the fuck is happening? Where's my life going?" And then Titania just tells you, like, "Oh, sorry, you worked at one of my husband's company, and then he saw that I was lovers with you, so he fired you. He's also now banging your mom." And he's like, "So I need you to go bang his sister." And you're like, "What the fuck is happening?" So you're like, you meet this beautiful, so to sum up that entire situation, this entire 5-minute rant that I've gone on, is Titania, I imagine, rich, powerful person who literally her moods affect, like, the city's infrastructure. Like, if she wants to, she hikes up the prices for Uber because of an argument between her and her boyfriend.
No, immediately.
Her and her boyfriend hikes up the prices for that.
This can't be. This can't happen.
No,
maybe Oberon.
No, I'm saying like their arguments. I'm not saying her specifically. I'm saying her arguments with Oberon lead to stuff like that happening.
It has nothing to do with man-made concepts such as currency.
Well, I'm saying like she's infecting the environment of the city.
Well, so would it just like kill the nature in the city?
I guess then, yeah, Central Park ends up fucking dying if we're doing this situation.
It's already dead.
If Central Park dies, I think the population of New York just jumps into the river because that's the one spot of nature. That's the one thing keeping people's mental health. Like, that's the lifeline.
Well, that and the drugs. So this whole 5-minute rant basically boils down to, one, you're having a rich lover who she is like, her moods affect like everything around her, whether that be the plant life or the people around her. You now have to deal with like political intrigue, even in a polyamorous relationship, which you already have to respect people's boundaries and things of that sort. You're now jumping into the mix of not really. This is not going to be a harmonious relationship with all the other partners, or all the partners are like working together. You're going to be dealing with one main lover, technically, who is like jealous and argumentative and like will bring into all these issues and like bring in the other lovers. But then B, you might have to deal with the other political intrigue of the fake court and things of that sort. That's a whole difficult thing to navigate already. Will there be many sexual relationships in there, banging it up? Yeah, and that's hot. But also, do you want to have the trouble of facing an entire fucking web of Sex in the City like intrigue and relationships every single day? I don't know if I'm ready for that.
It's joining the most toxic possible quote-unquote polycule, because to call it a polycule implies a level of functionality that is not present in this relationship, in this dynamic. This is Oberon and Titania and their separate harems, and you're caught in the middle, and no matter what you do, by being there, you have already fucked up.
Somehow in 2 harems, you're caught in the middle.
Yeah, and that's where you have to figure out you have to, in order to be with Titania, I think you have to be super fucking good at navigating personal relationships. And even then, you not only have to be good at navigating personal relationships, you have to be good at navigating like moods. Because if Oberon and her get into an argument, shit's going down. It's going to be explosive. It's going to be not a great environment for everybody around them. Because it not only do their arguments, like you've stated, their arguments, their fights affect not only the environment, but affect so many other people's lives. Seeing as it affected both the 4 lovers originally and those like the theater group, and it's spread out. And that chain reaction, one argument had a chain reaction of affecting like 8 different people. Imagine if they had a bigger argument going through. You have to be prepared. For you, our listener at home, if you want to fuck Titania, you got to be ready for this, for Game of Thrones level political navigating in order to fuck.
Okay, well, my counter is, Ibrahim, can we just have a conversation over here?
I'll go fuck myself. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, go fuck yourself.
Okay, cool.
Just over here in the corner? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in the corner. So if you have ever wanted to be taken care of entirely, holistically, in every sort of sense, by a big woman who has wings, and literally just because of your affiliation to her, she will ride or die for you forever.
I'm sorry.
And she will bathe you in rose water and milk and honey baths, and will surround you with, never even at the bath. But the
milk is interesting. I don't know if I want to bathe in milk and honey.
It's more like bath bomb powder anyway. And you'll be surrounded by other beautiful, like artistic, like-minded people. As Titania, everyone cares about sustainability. They're wearing clothes that they made. They are the plant people that you don't have to be, because they already fucking have all of that shit. They are the people that repair your relationship to nature, because it is just so beautiful what they do. And I mean, there's still a fear. They are ancestral descendants and are otherwise of Fey creatures or fairies that they are so old that they play pranks on each other. And sometimes those pranks can get violent. But hey, you're friends with me.
This sounds really appealing, but I will say that from everything I know about Oberon and Titania's dynamic, despite Titania's best efforts to like ride or die for me and defend me and keep me safe, Oberon is equally powerful and equally like conniving.
You know what?
So he can fuck up enough stuff that even though I have Titania's protection, I'm still like at a net loss.
Well, I will say, I think everyone's at a. I think everyone. Listen to me. Can you come closer? I think everyone's at a net loss when you are dating someone who cannot protect you from bandits, who cannot, anyone that you are like dating, you can still be killed at any moment.
Right. I think the one thing I look for in a partner is ability to defend me from bandits. To
take a mortal blow for me.
Right. And like hopefully survive it. But also just to be the shield to my dainty, I'm a delicate guy. I need somebody who's going to be there to defend me.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into the possibility of fucking Titania.
Can I come back from the corner now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah, come in, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Seems like you guys are having a real weird conversation, but whatever. Possibility. How possible it is to be with the Queen of the Fae. I don't think it's that possible, because we haven't really talked about...
It's not.
It's not. I'm so glad okay, I thought I was going to do this big argument.
You have to go into the forest. You have to go into the forest. You have, if Athens was New York, you're literally going from New York into fucking somehow a forest that's also in New York. You have to go. You have to run away.
Yeah, no, I'm good on that. I'm not home aloneing it, going into the middle of the fucking forest now.
That's fair.
It's hard.
Yeah, so I don't think it's that high of a possibility. Plus, even if you do manage to find her in the forest, run in, get into the Feywild, meet her, you then have to somehow interest her. You then have to invite into the fake horror, and then you also have to deal with her and her awkward lovers. I don't think that's possible. I'm giving this a 2. I'm gonna be so straight.
So here's the thing. Despite my fear of the woods and the forest and nature in general, I still put myself out there in that place where I will be terrified for my life. I don't know exactly why I do that, but I do on a semi-regular basis. So I think it's a little bit more possible. I think it's a little bit more possible for me. I might be out there in the woods, terrified, pissing, crying, shitting in my tent, regretting all of my life choices, and Titania comes in, swoops in, and says, "Hey, you pissed real hard. I like it. Come over here."
You fried chicken in there? You pissed it real loud. I like that.
Titania swoops in and sees me cowering in the corner, and is like, "Hey, you don't need to do that. Come over here. Come and see you." Oh, okay.
You can piss with me. Come on.
Right. I'll hold it while you piss.
What's your number, please?
And I'm gonna give it a 4. It's not crazy possible, but I think it's a little bit more likely than a 2.
Which is why I'll be giving this a 5.
Shut the fuck up. That's so possible though. 5 is really is so possible. And
it's squarely average. It is squarely average.
Means it happens a majority of the time. I think we're really trying to get.
That is not what average means.
I want to talk about average. Means it happens half the time.
No, average means it happens a majority. Like people, you have the possibility of encountering this daily. There's
between 1 to 10.
Between 1 to 10 is average. Average is I can on an average day I'm doing this and this.
Not only does Cleric not understand statistics,
I'm not. Oh my. That's not even the point of this.
The average from 1 to 10 is 4 to 6.
So yeah, it average. It's okay. I'm not
if you had a bell curve, it would be 4 to 6. It would be the bell.
It's an average day. I'm having an average day. So it's a normal day. I can encounter something on a normal day. I'm not encountering Titania in the Feywild on an average day.
You're not even in the Feywild. This is Earth.
Okay, I'm not encountering Titania on Earth. Whatever. Let's move on to attractiveness. I'm done.
This is a 9 for me. It's not entirely a 10 because I will say there are many different retellings of Titania. Most often, I think just because of the virtue of Shakespeare, a lot of them are portrayed by white women. But there is specifically there's no indication of race in the play itself, and there are retellings of Midsummer's Night's Dream where the cast being Indian is actually a necessity. The one retelling, whose director I'm not remembering the name of, Hermia and Helena are Indian, and there are just the set pieces are all with that influence, and it's amazing. Anyway, on top of different retellings, different sort of representations of her, she's also Fey. Who knows what fairies look like? Who knows how feral looking they could be? Who knows how actually elegant looking they could be in their standards of beauty? You just don't know. But I'm willing to love her for whatever. As soon as she tells me her name, I'm like, all right, let's go. Like, I'm leaving this earthly coil, mortal coil. I will become Peas Blossom 2 for you.
That's such a terrible name.
Mustard seed.
Die to hang out with Titania?
No.
You have to shuffle off this earthly coil.
I personally will, though.
Okay.
Joe
So
dies,
it's just
Poppy
that's
Seed lives.
unnecessary. Poppy Seed lives, yeah. But yeah, 9, beautiful nature woman, huge.
The problem for me, not the problem. This is gonna rank high before anybody gets on my case before I even fucking start this, because I saw Joe's eyes fucking click off. My image of Fae is something like I got from the magicians a little bit, where like they're more ethereal, like they're like very almost translucent, like purple hair, no eyebrows, big ass foreheads, shit like that. And while that can be attractive, I'm not super into it. And I imagine her being like the Fae queen, just like this beautiful, regal, big tittied shit like that. I'm gonna get this an 8. This is still gonna rank high. This is an 8, but I'm just saying that's my image of it, where it's not like a 9 or a 10. I was like, no eyebrows, no shit like that, just like translucent skin. It can be off-putting, but I'm still hot with it.
Cleric looks at me with no eyebrows. I'm ugly, a huge forehead.
Ibrahim, what's your score?
So here's the thing. Titania, unfortunately, is still a white woman. At least in my understanding. So that's going to dock her a couple of points. And then, that's no fault of her own. But it is what it is. So I think I'm going to have to sit around a 5. Just because, as beautiful as she is still a white woman, and she also has butterfly wings. Butterfly wings are problematic. They are delicate. They have this like powder that can get everywhere. I'm assuming that Titania has some way to like repowder her wings so they don't get like fucked up by laying in the bed sheets, where she has some special super high fucking rayon thread, 10,000 thread count shit that just like nullifies that. But it's a bad texture. It's a bad texture. I don't want to touch it.
Yeah, I completely forgot about wings and the especially butterfly wings. I just knocked my score down to a 6. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, no, that's totally bad.
They're weird, and like I'm thinking about the sound they would make, because they don't have feathers, so it's not gonna be like a lighter sound. It's not gonna be like a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It's gonna be like a paddle in the air, just like swooshing by. It's really not as delicate when you get to a human scale. It's not as ethereal.
Let's go to audacity. How audacious you need to be in order to be with Titania. You need to be pretty fucking audacious for Titania. I'm giving this a 2 again. You have to be pretty fucking audacious for the queen of the Fae. With all the other, and then understanding the political intrigue or the fucking unharmonious relationship of her polycool. No, it's a 2.
If I am running straight towards the desert at full speed with Smoker's Lung, and I am ready and willing, despite if going by my law, the 50-50 chance that I potentially run into Titania. She's a fairy. Fairies love reverence. I feel like if some fucking Asian kid just like runs into the ocean, it just is screaming Titania's name, she's gonna be like, let's check that out. What's going on over there?
That's already a problem. If you're running into the fucking ocean, screaming something, that's already this can't be higher. I'm letting you know, your score cannot be higher than a 4. It can't, because you've already said if you have to run into the fucking ocean in order to get to Tania's attention, that's already audacious enough. You have to run into the fucking desert. You have to run into. This is just to meet her, mind you. This is all to meet her, and not even the continued relationship that happens afterwards, or the one time. Still, because even if you have sex with them one time, you're now on Oberon's fucking radar. You have to deal with all that shit. Still,
I don't care about Oberon. Fuck Oberon. Do not care about him. I have stated multiple times on this podcast that I'm a lazy lover and I wouldn't do a lot to attempt to find someone. Absolutely. I will say, because you told me a number and told me to do something, I don't really want to do it. But I will agree 4, because that's the highest thing that I can do right now.
You know, I hear what both of y'all are saying, and I tend to agree. Because this is a queen. This is a queen with subjects. So, as a queen, I really think Titania. Well, that's another obstacle. Can't say her fucking name. I think it's a bit audacious to think that she would be interested in me. I think it's a little bit outside of the realm of like what I'm willing to do to try and appease a queen. I am not a very. I'm not going to get on my hands and knees and like beg, like, hey. Please be with me. Oh, mommy, thank you so much for gracing me with your present. I'm not going to do that. That's not going to happen. So I think the level of dedication that I would need to give Titania is not something I'm willing to do. So I'm going to go with a 3. It's unfortunate, but I think to think that I could be with Titania and service her in all the way that she needs and, you know, the way that is good for her. That's a high bar to clear.
All right, with that, we got our scores for that. So now we move on to parental approval.
You gotta admit that this would be good. This would be a good number.
God. This is a 5. I'm gonna be real. It's a 5.
I'll take it.
Listen, if you're already lovers with a Tanya, because this is the world that we're living in. If you're still lovers with Tanya and you pulled up with this beautiful, regal white woman, my parents apparently don't like white women. Is what I'm figuring out, which I figured out recently.
Really?
Not necessarily white. Not necessarily.
I mean, we're under the assumption of a majority.
I'm not.
So
you can.
Here's the thing. Here's the assumption I'm going to make. If it's the original Shakespeare Titania, then I have to do this a 5. If it's anything else,
then she's a white man, honestly.
That's what I gotta keep it a 5 then. You know what? Just base 5.
Yeah.
But I think once it gets past that hurdle of meeting my parents, Titania will be able to charm them with fey magic and shit like that, or just like her natural regalness will charm them. I think it's a 5. Just in general. Well, with everything, all mixed together, I think a 5.
Baby, this is a 7. Tell me no.
I'm not saying no, I'm not going to argue with you. We're just gonna
7 is high. Do you wanna justify that?
This is a rich woman from a long descending line, potentially rich, has people who will constantly be able to reference her or make referrals to her. Constant achievements, constant accomplishments. You know, if my family finds out that she's married, that'll be a problem. But like, you just don't talk about it. 7. What I'm saying is my parents care heavily about anyone being involved with me to be successful because I'm a fuck up.
Financial status.
Yes.
I'm going to have to go with an unfortunately low 4 because my parents would certainly not approve, as you mentioned, Joe. As soon as anyone finds out that this is a married woman, or as soon as anyone gets a hint that this is a woman who's involved with more than one person's, the parental approval drops off the face of the chart. This is really going to be an intricate game, not only of navigating the interpersonal relationships with Titania's many, many lovers, but also making sure that none of those lovers have any connection to my parents, my family, their friend group, their Discord, or not Discord, their WhatsApp servers. It's all going to be that, and making sure that word doesn't get back. So, yeah, parental approval. They'd appreciate the fact that she's a queen, but eventually the jig is going to be up. She just has too many people in her life for there not to be a point of connection.
For that, we have our scores for Titania, Queen of the Fae, and now we're going to pause for a little bit of math. All right, Joe, what's the score?
Okay, everybody. So, sorry.
No, go for it. No, that's your intro now. That's your intro. You've chosen this.
The scores are Cleric for Titania is a 3.8 average. For me, it's a 6.3, which is 1.3 above average. And for Ibrahim, just a straight up 4. which makes Titania average out between all three of us a 4.7. Which
Okay.
is pretty good.
That's pretty good. I mean, compared to our past low scoring ones, that's pretty solid. It's a little bit below average, but again, a lot of the obstacles that we're facing with Titania, there's a lot. There are a lot of obstacles.
And it's because of her status.
She needs to work on her relationship
Yeah.
with the person she's legally bound to.
Yeah.
And make sure that he's not fucking with the other 50 partners.
It is funny because if you are thousands of years old, you know you're not learning any new things.
Sometimes you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But that is all we can for the titular Titania. Ibrahim, are you ready for your pick?
So my pick for today is the humble dryad. Dryads, also called hamadryad, are tree spirits from Greek mythology, taking the form of beautiful young women. Dryads were originally the spirits of oak trees, but the name was later applied to all tree nymphs. It was believed that they lived only as long as the trees they inhabited, shy creatures except around the goddess Artemis, who was known to be a friend to most nymphs.
Who hasn't wanted to fuck a tree?
Fuck yeah.
Fucking hell. Okay, so here's the thing with dryads, right? There's actually a bunch of different kinds of dryads now, but there weren't always. Like, dryads used to just mean the spirits of oak trees specifically. And nowadays, we say dryad as tree spirit. So, like, yeah, you could want to fuck a tree, but what kind of tree do you want to fuck? You want to fuck a laurel tree?
Cherry.
That's a Daphne.
Redwood.
Redwood? I don't know what that is. But you could fuck a melier. That's an ash tree. You could fuck epimelides. That's an apple tree.
Here's my personal belief, and I want to say this from the bottom of my heart. Everyone, every single person, no matter how you are, no matter where you come from, no matter where you live, every single person has looked at one tree and said, "Damn, that tree's pretty sexy. I'd fuck that. That's a sexy tree." There is,
you know, the trees with pussies in them.
Yeah, there's trees that just have straight up pussies that you're like, you can stick something in there. Trussies. Every single person. You could add me on Twitter when this episode goes live. You could add me on Twitter and be like, "No, that's not true. I'm gonna say you're a fucking liar." Every single person, from the most like devout religious person, prude, whatever the fuck you want on, to the most like secluded person in the tundra, have looked at a tree, has looked at a fucking tree and said, "Damn, that tree got ass." So why wouldn't you want to fuck a dryad?
Hi, I'm here to tell you that you should fuck dryads. You should fuck trees.
You should fuck trees. I mean, okay, I'll get into some of the inherent problems with fucking dryad. One, they're tree spirits, so if they turn back into a tree while you're having sex with them, you're just gonna look like a weirdo in the woods. Again, two, being in the woods in general, that kind of sucks.
I'm down. I don't know. Like, everything about dryads, some of my favorites. Actually, I think most of my favorite nymphs in Greek mythology are naiads, technically, but their relation to trees and, I mean, nature are all interconnected, absolutely. Also, you get to hang out with, like, the lesbian icon, asexual lesbian icon, Artemis.
Mm-hmm. The question I have is, do dryads follow the rules of, like, tree nature, which means, like, if it's, of course, they're more available in, like, the spring and summer, but then, like, fall comes around, like, leaves are falling, and then, like, winter, they're basically, like, leaves dead. What does that mean for the dryad themselves? Do they have to go into hibernation or, like, something like that, or, like, be out of it, or, like, is it one of those things where it is, maybe it's a mood shift or something of that sort, or it's, I think that's kind of where my distinction lies. I want to say, this is going to be a high-ranking monster off rip. Because I'm not really seeing any downside of a dryad. Like, there's no bad... I don't think there's really any bad dryad... Oh, there is bad dryad lore. Wait. Not in, like, bad in the sense of, like, problematic. It's bad in the sense of this could be a problem, but not really. Is that dryads sometimes, I know, suck the life out of some of their victims. They lure people into their trees and then, like, suck the essence out of them. Sometimes killing them, sometimes not. But listen, if she wants to suck my soul, you already know.
Right. I'm never going to complain about the soul getting sucked out of me.
I ain't never going to complain about that.
Notable dryads are Eurydice. I'm seeing,
Eurydice?
Was technically a veil dryad.
Really? Eurydice?
Or an Aulaniad.
Wait for me, I'm coming.
You look like Orpheus. You look like you could just start playing guitar and be Orpheus.
Wow.
Cleric.
Honestly,
I do have some
that's
Dryad
actually
fun facts.
I want to be writing off that compliment for a little bit, honestly.
What did you say, Ibrahim?
I do have some Dryad, just like fun fact. It doesn't seem like y'all need to be
Please.
sold on this. But so since Dryads are like oak tree spirits, a couple of things about oak trees. They can live up to 1,000 years.
Mm.
They don't enter their old age phase until around 700 years old. They're also the symbol for the 80th wedding anniversary. So a Dryad is a ride or die. Like a Dryad will stand by you. This is going to be, if you want this to be a long-term relationship, the Dryad will stay with you. They are loyal. And a single oak tree can germinate both male and female flowers. So
Hoggers.
I'm just saying, like,
Wait a second.
You're going to get pregnant.
you can
Have you-
be impregnated by the Dryad if you
So
would.
you've just introduced probably our first or second Mpreg monster of the show. You've just if you're into Mpreg and breeding,
I'll take it.
Joe, are you waving your hand?
I will have this Dryad's baby.
Yes. Yes. Me too. I just realized this. The Hesperides were also Dryads, which are the nymphs of evening and golden light of sunsets, daughters of the evening. They are nymphs of pleasure and gardens and singing. So Dryads are fucking partiers.
I'm with it. I love parties. I love going out. I love having those kind of funs. I am like, so technically, okay, so I'm getting topped with this Dryad and getting,
You can. That's the thing. They can both. They can germinate both male and female. So like, you can get topped, or you can top. Like they're a switch. A Dryad is a switch.
So let's
Perhaps even a seasonal switch.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before I jump into the Papo scale, I want to give a scenario for us for a little Dryad to get to picture it in our minds as we go into this. You're walking through a park. You're in New York, so you're walking through Central Park. No, I'm kidding. You're in the park. You're walking through, and then you see this woman or this person just like sitting next to a tree. They have like beautiful. Their hair is like same like color as like the leaves of there. Sometimes green, sometimes just like a dark brown of maybe the trunk of the tree, and it's just sitting there very beautiful. And she's like guarding it or just like surrounding it. And you're talking to her. Maybe she's like a park ranger. Maybe she works as a park ranger of the park. And it's just like being like, yeah, I protect all these trees. I've been here for a very long time. And you start talking. You have like these very naturist conversations. Of course, you have to be out in nature, which sucks. But like you have to have that close conversations. Like be out there, and you slowly start talking, and then like this relationship blossoms from there. And it's like this beautiful kind of nature walk, this kind of thing. Of course, they may have very seasonal moods. Maybe it'll be like a very seasonal, like, hey, we're gonna go out and do all this stuff now, but hey, like in this the fall, which is like, hey, I don't even want to leave my tree, or they may not talk to you. Because if a Dryad has to go back to their tree for like the winter, then like you can only be with them during the spring and the summer, and maybe sometime in the fall. So there might be an issue there. But that's
possible.
That's like a minor issue, I think. But that's still something to be aware of.
But also, they grow golden apples.
That's true, golden apples. And I think, honestly, I think you're just dating a park ranger farmer girlfriend, or who just wants to be with you.
This is your cottagecore GF.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice.
Oh yeah,
and like normal, like I think the issues of like maybe not being there during the fall and winter can be fine. Can be rectified.
This is a forager, and also in New York there are foragers, like they're straight up. So you can have a Dryad anywhere.
Yeah,
like the idea that they have to go back to the trees, I think that's interesting. I think that's definitely like a possibility. They might need to go and care for their trees.
Yeah.
But also, this might just be seasonal depression.
Yeah.
This might just be a really low mood for them while their tree loses its leaves, and they're just kind of like really low energy for the winter. And like that ain't no thing but a chicken wing. Like that's not a relationship like breaker at all.
And if it is for you, you're fucking weird. Evaluate yourself.
Right, exactly. 100%. This podcast stands with those with seasonal depression and seasonal affective disorder. Maybe I shouldn't make statements about your podcast.
No, you can
cut that out.
No, it's fine. You can make that statement. We don't give a shit.
For me, the Dryad is just this really, like, in the lore, they're typically sort of shy, sort of withdrawn, but they're like hardcore about nature. And the thing about being a Dryad is that they're tied to a specific tree. not to a forest, so they don't need to be in a forest. They could be in the tree that's in front of your house. You can transplant their tree.
Mm.
If you want to move somewhere, as long as the climate is suitable, fucking transplant the tree or take a couple thousand acorns and make it happen.
Okay.
Easy peasy.
All right, this makes you want to jump to the pop scale, because this actually brings up a good point of transportation and things like that. So, for possibility, how possible it is to be with this monster and with their personality plus their, like, where they're at. If you could transport their tree and they don't have to, like, just be stationary with their tree, that raises possibility up more. The second thing that raises up possibility more is that I think every tree technically can be a dryad if they need to. I don't know if there's specific requirements to be a dryad, if they had to be like blessed by the gods or something like that. But I think if I remember lore correctly, any tree can be a dryad. But some trees can make physical manifestations of themselves, some can't. But there is that possibility to become a dryad. Every tree has that opportunity to. If that's the case, that raises the possibility to a 9. I'm going to be so honest. This is a 9.
I'm super with you because I see trees all the time. I'm looking at a tree right now.
Yeah.
There's trees all over the fucking place, and oak trees native to like every continent. Essentially, you see oak trees all the fucking time. They're everywhere, and there's different dryads for different kinds of trees. But oak specifically, it's everywhere.
I guess if it is like only for an oak tree, that may lower possibility. But I think we're going off the assumption that now that every tree can be it. So I'm going to keep it with a 9. But I guess if it was the oak tree one, I'd make it a 7. But I'm going to stick with the 9 portion of it, just thinking of that way.
I'm going 8.
Okay.
Pretty similar reasons. This does require me to go outside.
Yeah.
Which I don't really do that. But yeah, it's super possible.
Mm-hmm. All right. Tracksmiths, how tracked these monsters are? 9. I'm going to give this another 9.
Wow.
I'm not going to give this a 10 because I'm going to hold off on that for our last monster, maybe. But I think this is... Actually, I'll give this an 8. Reason being, trees are hot. Everyone, like I said, everyone has a sexy tree. Everyone's got one. But there's also the possibility of... I think I said this a little... I think I said this a little before. May not be included. But like, I'm just worried about like leaves like getting in my hair while shit is happening. Or like, we're having sex and then a bug crawls on me. I'm like, oh, what the fuck? But other than that, hot, attractive, 100%. I'm gonna give it an 8.
I'm going to give the dryad a 9. I love trees, and I love the fact that the dryad does not need to be in a forest. As you said, trees are hot, trees are sexy. Everyone wants to fuck trees. But like the nature spirit is probably going to be like wearing a flowy sundress and a summer hat, and that's just immediately, yeah, I'm into that. That's what I want.
Actually, that is such a vibe. Sundress season all the time.
I'm going to go 8. I feel like the way that dryads differ all in appearance, it's obviously not. They're a little boring.
That's valid. Honestly, that's very valid. I think you're dealing with, if you're going with their personality a little bit, of it being very like naturistic, very much, let's go on hikes, let's do things like that, let's constantly go out. It's like,
no.
They don't want to. I don't think this person wants to be inside at all. This person will hate the idea of being inside. Like, there's no way, like, even to be inside, like, hey, let's go eat some dinner. It's like, yeah, let's eat it outside. It's like, it's the middle of winter. It's like, yeah, but we can, like, close you up in a blanket or something and be outside. Like,
being the middle of summer is worse for me.
Yeah.
And they would prefer that, most likely.
I don't think this person's ever going to be comfortable being inside. And if they're inside, they're no shoes, but dirt dragging all over the floor. This is the person who walks with no shoes on, like, outside, like on the road. So maybe I'll lower mine to a 7, but we'll go to audacity, how audacious it is to be in this with this monster.
Not very audacious.
I would actually say I'll give this a 5, to be honest.
Why?
Like,
why?
Again, you're fucking a tree.
Why?
You gotta constantly be outside. You have to be in nature. I don't like being in nature. Ask me why one more time.
Why?
It's because you have to be outside in nature. You have to I think it's a lot. It's also like, sometimes dryads I think can be very secretive, so you have to like find the right tree or like show that you're in tune with nature. So I think it's a little bit more audacious. I'm gonna give it a 5. Like, it's middle of the road. This is average. 5.
Sure. Whatever you say, partner.
I'm losing my mind. Joe?
Ibrahim?
Oh.
Joe? Ibrahim?
Joe? Ibrahim? Jibrahim?
Hi, I'm Jibrahim. Hey, what's up? It's Jibrahim coming at you in the morning. It's 0500 in the morning. We got all the latest hits. So
5 a.m.
Yeah, I don't fucking know. Radio jockeys at 5 a.m. They're probably loud. I really think that it's really not that audacious, because when you think about how long they live, if they have 1,000-year lifespan and they don't reach like old age until 700, that's so many years that could overlap with so many different people. That's so many different lifetimes that they could intersect with yours. It seems like it would just be normal for a dryad to have like multiple human lovers, because like what else are they going to do? They're going to, like, if you have a dryad in the middle of New York City, there's probably only a couple of them. It's shit. They wouldn't want to be there. But there's so many trees in Central Park. I don't think it's that audacious. It's not like, oh, you're never going to see a dryad, or like, oh, they're super far off. It doesn't seem like that far of a stretch. It would just be like, oh yeah, I'm dating the tree that's on Broadway and 6th. It's normal. I don't know if Broadway intersects with 6th. I just said two streets that.
But yeah, okay, that's pretty normal.
The quick mental fact check on that.
So what was your number?
I'm going to give it an 8 because it seems super. It doesn't seem like that far of a stretch. If somebody said that they were dating the random tree on the corner of the street, like, I'd just be like, yeah, I mean, that's fine. You don't have to travel.
I am going to choose 7, very similarly to echoing the 8. I don't know. It's more of a vibe score.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel 7.
All right, that's fine. Sometimes you just got to vibe it out.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then we're going to go on to parental approval. Would our parents approve of you coming home with a nature girl? I'm not really sure mine would. I think really? I think actually, I'm going to give this a 7. I think it'll be okay. I think it'll just be fine. Like, my dad's into nature. He likes going to the water more. So if there was like, she was more of a water girl, then maybe. But, my mom likes going on walks, shit like that. It'd just be the awkwardness of like, they sometimes don't like going out. I think they'd mostly be like, hey, Cleric, you never really like to go outside, and you're dating somebody who is currently like climbing 3 different trees at the same time. Are you sure this is the right relationship for you? I'll be like, she makes me see things. And that's basically, you see the beauty of life. It's like, all right.
Pussy makes me see shit.
Yeah, pussy changed my life. Pussy made me into nature. That Trissy made me environmentalist.
Trissy.
Changed my life. Pussy got me dreaming.
This is an 8. My parents love nature. They're mountain people. I could easily see this work out for all parties. It would probably make me go outside more. Probably make me actually consume vitamin D from the sun. It's probably a good idea all around.
Vitamin D's nuts.
Hey. Cass, can you do me a favor? Can you actually cut out when Cleric said vitamin D's nuts? And I'm going to give you a clean one. Vitamin D's nuts. Hey. So just go ahead and use my cut.
Trees nuts.
Just keep overlaying all of them actually on top of each other. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Joe, can we get a clean word?
Get it.
Trees nuts.
Yeah, there we go.
Trees nuts.
Okay. Parental approval. Unfortunately, yeah, you brought up a very good point, Cleric. This is a barefoot nature girly. This is someone who believes in all of that, like, I'm going to feel the earth with my toes. I'm going to, like, squish my toes into the mud. I'm going to come inside and track that in. Like, if this person ever did come inside, which they might not, they would track mud all over my mother's carpet. And if there's one thing you don't want to do in a black household, it is track mud on the fucking carpet. So I'm going to have to go with a 4. This it's the parental approval would very rapidly drop as soon as they met this person and saw just the general, maybe not uncleanliness, but the mess that they would bring.
Valid. I'm with it. All right. So with that, we got all our scores added up together to get our overall score. So we're going to pause for a myth. Joe, what is our overall scores? Can you lay it down for us?
So, overall scores for Cleric for Dryad is 7.3. Overall scores for Joe for Dryad is 7.8. Overall score for Ibrahim is a 7.5.
Interesting.
So all together, that averages out between all three of us for a 7.5 score for the Dryad.
Wow, that's one of our higher ranked monsters. I think that gets in the top 5, if I'm correct with it.
I don't know.
All right, well, we'll figure that out later.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't watch the show.
Yeah, I don't. Me either.
Me neither.
I'm more of a Blurt of Mouth fan.
As you should be listen to Blurtermouth. Yeah, so that will conclude our conversation about the demure dryads, and now it's time for our final monster, which will be, I think, another controversial monster to talk about. And there's a reason I want to talk about this monster, quote unquote monster, because I want to get into this conversation. I think it'll be an interesting conversation. It's mostly I am curious as to what Joe's and everyone else's opinion on if this counts. The monster I have chosen are elves. Elves are magical people of otherworldly grace, living in the world, but not entirely part of it. They live in a place of ethereal beauty in the midst of ancient forests, showing silvery spires glittering with fairy light. Their soft music drifts through the air, and gentle fragrances waft on the breeze. With their unearthly grace and fine features, elves appear hauntingly to humans and members of many other races. They are more often amused than excited, and more likely to be curious than greedy. Their long-lived lives offer a broad perspective on events that might trouble the shorter-lived races deeply.
Fuck you.
What do you mean, fuck me?
Elves are not monsters.
Okay, here's the problem. Shut up. So here's the shut up.
You got a lot of work to do on this one.
Okay, here's the up here. This is actually a conversation I want to have because this is like a lot of people don't consider many besides elves, they don't consider dwarves or halflings or gnomes to be monsters. I want to talk about this because I'm curious as to. I would consider them yes, because what do we define a monster as? Is it somebody who isn't humanoid? Because there are humanoid monsters, so technically an orc wouldn't technically be a monster that we can talk about on the show. So I'm just curious as to what really constitute what a monster is. Is a monster somebody who is just not human? In which case, many like a vampire technically isn't a monster then that we can talk about, or a zombie isn't. Joe?
Monster, according to Oxford Languages, an imaginary creature that is typically large, ugly, and frightening, criticize or reprimand severely, a threatening force, a person of unnatural or extreme ugliness, deformity, wickedness, or cruelty, or cruel, or a legendary animal, combining features of animal and human form or having the forms of various animals in combination. Are elves large, ugly and frightening, or cruel, or...
They are unnatural. Things that make you feel uncomfortable. They can be cruel.
They can't be cruel. Are large, ugly, frightening.
Well, also, I don't like the definition of monster in general, to be very honest.
That just seems really... That seems really mean.
It seems really...
All the monsters that we have on this program, all the monsters that you all have brought, they've been sexy. Varying degrees of sex.
Yes, but also, I think anthropologically, monsters being some form of a metaphor of a danger or of a lesson to be learned, or things that cause terror or fear for whatever purpose. And I've never felt that way about elves. I've never cared about elves in my life.
Well, here's the thing.
I'm scared
they
of elves.
could also... Why are you scared of elves?
It's going to sound really bad. I'm scared of thin, tall white people.
No, that's fair.
That is so
That's fair.
Elves, for me, check all the same boxes as anyone from Nordic nations. I'm sorry for the Nordic listeners. I don't know what it is. There's something about that combination of pale skin and an elongated body that just...
I mean... To date this episode, Swedish people are on thin ice, so that's fair.
Only Swedish Chef is holding it down.
Only Swedish Chef.
Only Swedish. And he's also on thin ice. I don't know.
He said, on the last episode, he said Bjork, Bjork, Bjork. Which is slur.
Like even Selkies, people or monsters that have proximity to humanity still turn into seals. dryads still turn into trees. It also
But-
can be.
Again, ethereal beauty is something that is both attractive and frightening. Titania, while she can affect the world around her, is still an ethereal beauty. So if you take away elves have that ethereal beauty that are also scary. They're long-lived. They have,
But they're shitty descendants of fairies.
everyone can be shitty descendants of fairies.
We're
No.
all shitty descendants. We don't need to. Listen,
Yeah,
Abraham
but
lived like
fairies.
fucking 1,000 years and was having babies at 900.
We can't all be Abraham. We can't all be
Like I'm a
these fairies.
I'm a shitty Ibrahim when I have to live up to Abraham's legacy of like fucking nutting all over the place at 1,000 years old, having a bunch of kids.
But none of us can live up to that nut legacy. The legacy, if you will.
No, like, oh, Cass, go ahead and cut that.
But no, what I want to talk about is I think we have to define monster as, first of all, I think the definition of monster is not great. Because I think a lot of, you can find beauty and horror in almost any kind of thing. And a lot of the monsters we've talked about before, like even that monsters we've talked about this episode, have been ethereal beauties and or like creatures that are outside the norm. Monsters are just basically creatures that are outside the norm.
And I think the monsters we've been talking about are there's historical intentionality behind them teaching lessons of fear.
Okay, yes.
Elves aren't the roots of elves sort of similar to that? Like, aren't they like a warning to not go into the forest because of those people? Like, when I think of like classical elves before D&D, before they were domesticated, I think of these like terrifying, sharp, beautiful people who are kind of similar to us, but not quite.
Yeah, that's also true. And I know there's also been different, depending on the lore of elves, there's very different descriptions. There are elves that are taking humans who will like hate humans, who will take them into the forest and turn them into fucking trees that intrude on their forest. They're protectors of nature. People who protect the idea of that sort of nature and of Fey and of all of that, which is ethereal. This episode took a turn.
Yeah.
I mean, I am looking at a lot of methods in which certain peoples of marginalized backgrounds were called elves or described that way. I'm looking at a lot. I'm certainly there are actual like fucking old fucking ancient British, potentially anti-Semitic and or otherwise descriptions of elves for sure.
So I think before we get into more fun conversations with elves and more that, I just want to say that I think we as monster fuckers have to broaden our perception of what a monster can be. And I think the perception is we're basing it on a very human idea. And we're thinking like, hey, humans, like the most monstrous thing is what a monster is. But anything that we can talk about that isn't innately human, it could be considered a monster and should be talked about in whether or not they're sexy and lovable and fuckable. That's my belief to you, Joe.
It's a weak environment. It's a weak argument. It's a weak argument to me. But we can continue. Let's go. Let's go. Let's talk about.
I think we can all agree that the true monsters are man.
Our man.
So welcome to how
Amen.
we're going to start rating our humans.
Hey, welcome back to MFA. Today we're going to be doing an episode on history's greatest monsters, starting off with Winston Churchill.
Yes. Do you have is there a scenario? Like, are we like basing this off a specific medium?
No, I was going to say
elves?
D&D elves. D&D elves are like the easiest one we could talk about. There's hundreds of different, let's say there's a whole bunch of different subraces of elves that we could talk about in different episodes, like Drow, Shadowkai, Sea Elves, Sun Elves, Moon Elves, all those can be talked about in a different episode. I want to just talk about base elves that are on here. Base elves are the typical Lord of the Rings elves you see, like long-lived, they are like very fleeting people, like since they live such a long time, live up to like 1,000 years. A lot of what we're talking about is very long-lived. This is a very long-lived episode. Since they live up to 1,000 years, they're very much like fleeting, like, oh yeah, we'll talk about that. Like, we'll talk about that in a couple months. And like a couple months of them is like 13 years kind of thing. So their concept of time isn't really established, and they're more like, if there's an issue in the world, they're more like, that'll eventually get solved. It's like, yeah, because you're 1,000 years old. We have shit like, if we don't solve this issue for us in the next 10 years, it's a problem. And they're like,
they're French people.
They getting less attractive by the second.
Elves are the people that are like, I don't understand why people need to go out of their way to call themselves gay. We can just live that behind doors.
Why do you have to shove it down my throat?
no, okay. I don't think elves are that much like that.
I mean, we're generalizing all of them, absolutely.
I think elves are more of like, when it comes to serious issues, they like buckle down and like will get things done and be like strong towards the allies. But when it comes to like things that they think are like, oh, like that can be solved later, that's not like a pressing issue, that gets pushed to the side, and they're more focused on their pursuits of like whimsy. They're more focused on whimsical pursuits. They don't really have greed. They aren't very ambitious. And when it comes to like business pursuits, like they're not trying to make business. They're more like, hey, I want to be the best fucking artist I can be. And if that takes me 500 years to make one piece of art that I think is the best, that's how long it's going to take for me. And that's like kind of the shit they do. Which I think
So they're shitty centrists, is what I mean. They're shitty centrists.
Centrists that live a long time.
You know,
Joe Biden.
how is it
Is an elf.
scenario, Joe?
My name is Joe Bidon from the Florida.
Joseph Bidon.
The next D&D campaign I do, that's who's going to be the leader of the elves.
Just to go into possibility very quick.
Yeah.
If we're going with D&D elves, with possibility, just depending on how widespread we're talking, because we have elves that are just in secret magical forests by themselves.
Yes, okay, so there are secret magical forests that they don't leave those there. There are other elves that are always about. They make themselves part of the society because they understand that, like, you can't be... Elves are part of every aspect of society. Some are secluded, some are not. That's why there's so many sub-races of elves, I think, as well.
They're rich people cosplaying poverty.
Mm.
I stole that joke from a stand-up comedian, but...
You're not wrong, is the thing.
Uh-huh.
But they are very possible to be with. So I would say this is a 9.
Wouldn't...
Yes, elves are very possible to be with. Elves are very, like... we're going with D&D lore. If we're going with that. Elves are very much intrinsically part of almost every single society. Sure, there are the ones that are secret off in their own little forests protecting that, but other elves have made their way into the realm and have become very part of everything. Like most towns, most villages in D&D have have elves and dwarves and gnomes and shit like that. So elves are very much common. I think this is a 9 or a 10, honestly.
Because they're the dominant socioeconomic ethnic class.
Thank you, Brennan Lee Mulligan. I appreciate this. Constructive criticism. What's your fucking score?
It's like a 7, which is still good, but I'm going to account for there's something very Korean about elves, which is they don't fucking talk to anyone but themselves. And I'm just like, if that's gonna be your prerogative, I'm just not gonna... I don't want to seek you out necessarily. If you step up to me, that tells me something.
That's very true. Okay. I get that. I get that kind of vibe. Yeah, it's very isolationist vibes. Like we have our own issues, and if it finally does affect us, then we'll help out. But if it doesn't, then we're just gonna kind of vibe with it. That's kind of that kind of vibe. I think that was also in the Lord of the Rings, where the fucking elves are like, listen, unless Sauron's coming down our door, we're not really gonna help out, except for Legolas.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that vibe.
Yeah.
So isolation is kind of vibe, but still, they're very much possible to in the world.
What are you feeling, Ibrahim?
I'm thinking that I'm going to go with a solid 8. It's very possible elves are usually, like, if not the most populous race, second place after humans. It's so possible. They flit into town whenever they like. They, like, cosplay poverty for a little bit. I'm stealing from the same comedian that Joe is stealing from. And then they, after their, like, summer vacation in the city, which lasts fucking 20, 30 years, they go back home. It's super possible. They come here, they vacation, they're fucking out-of-towners, they fuck up the culture, they raise the rents while they're there, they think it's just a fucking summer, but they fuck up an entire generation's socioeconomic possibilities, and then they go home, and it's like, to them, nothing ever happened. And to us, we gotta fucking deal with the fucking shit they caused.
So we're just calling elves gentrifiers now.
Anyways.
Which is I'm not saying it's incorrect. All right, so then let's go to attractiveness. How attractive are elves? I'm going to let everyone else score before I go.
7. Like, I think... I'm sorry I'm eating bread. But I think the more... Certainly the more non-monstrous elves, whatever that might be, are, like, more interesting to me than just fucking regular-ass elves. Like, Shadow Kai are really interesting. Avariel are really interesting. Even sea elves sounds like a cool concept. Eladrin, super down. In general, I look at Orlando Bloom and I'm like, not interested.
Valid. Orlando Bloom, like Legolas is hot, but in the traditionally hot sense, I think. So that's why I'm going to give elves. I think I'll give them a 7 as well. They're traditionally hot.
Attractiveness. So elves are like, they're well known to be beautiful. I think I'm going to go with a solid 9. They are very pretty. They are.
What about the lanky
beautiful.
white people?
They are very lanky. Oh, that's inconsistent. Hold on, let me change that. I'm going to say a 6 for attractiveness. They're well known to be beautiful. Like, that's like an objective thing. And also, elves can come in different colors. They can come in different like races, although they do tend to push the other colors down into the dark. So that's a whole other thing. They can be pretty. They can be cool. I don't watch Lord of the Rings, but there's that new black elf, I believe, that was in the fucking dwarf. Trailers. A dwarf.
Yes.
Okay. Never mind then. Cut that. I don't want to be wrong about Lord of the Rings.
Sometimes hot people can just be boring. Them sometimes just being hot is not. That's it,
No, the social attractiveness is pretty low, because if this is a person who has literally already heard everything that you're going to say, they're going to do that thing where they're like, oh, yes, I had a lover 50 years ago who said the same thing. And it's like, okay, fuck. Well, that made me feel shit about everything.
I feel like the boringness will translate into the audacity for me.
Yeah.
This might just be 7s across the board, which is pretty okay. But... I think simply a 7.
Simply a 7 is fine. For me, Audacity, I'm going to give this a 6, actually. Like, we already call them, like, they're rich kid transplants, they're fucking gentrifiers, they're very much hottie toddies, which is, like, you can't get with those people, but it's going to be a fucking nightmare for you if they don't learn how to be better people. They're good. There are elves who will probably be cool, but there are other ones who are way too hotty toddy. Like, back in the forest, we did this. We had abundance. It's like, shut the fuck up, Bradley.
I don't give a fuck.
Oh,
you have inherent magic.
Suck my dick or leave.
Oh, you still harvest your wheat with metal. Back in my forest, we just ask the wheat nicely.
I do an ethereal song for the wheat to leave. It's like, okay, Bradley, yes. I'm trying to put shit in the toaster. Can you shut the fuck up?
Bradley.
Bradley the elf is suck.
What's your audacity score?
I'm gonna say a 5. The audacity of trying to get with this person who's fucking just like been around in town for 30 years, it's not impossible. But I think that there would always be that element of like, oh, that's cute, and that presents a barrier. There's always that thing of they've seen people who are like you but better. They just got so much more fucking experience. It would be weird as a human.
Then for the final score of this episode, parental approval. If you came home with an elf, would your parents approve? I think mine would, honestly.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this an 8. I think my parents would approve of this shit. It's ethereal. It's weird. They'd approve. That's all I got for that one. They'll be rich kids.
7s across the board. Like, yes, technically, if they're worldly, if they're tall, if they are entrepreneurial, I don't know. Like, it just seems like a good fit.
I think I'm gonna have to go lower for this one. I think I'm gonna have to use a 1 on this one. I don't think my parents would approve of me being with an elf. There's this element of like hoity-toityness without necessarily having much financial wealth.
Mm.
Because they might just have like influence. It's like, oh, I have all my things back in the fucking forest. But that doesn't translate to money making necessarily.
Mhm.
They could be, they're out here slumming it, and they're going to be out here slumming it for your natural lifetime. And when I present my parents with that, that's not going to go over well. Oh, hey, Ibrahim, what is your elf wife do? Oh, well, she sings to horses, and then every once a month she goes out into the woods and fucking like.
And I don't see her for 20 years.
Yeah.
She disappears for 20
Yeah, and then she's been gone for a while, but she's gonna come back. Yeah.
She'll come back.
She'll come back.
That was parental approval. Fucking one.
That's interesting. Gotcha.
All right, with that, we've gotten all our scores for the finale of Elves. So why don't we do, for the last time this episode, pause for math.
Math.
All right, Joe, for the last time this episode, drop us those hot, fresh, stinking scores.
I'm gonna drop this fast and hot. All right. Cleric elves 7.5. Joe elves 7. Ibrahim elves 5. Altogether, that makes a very mediocre 6.5 elves score.
Which is
all around.
above average, which is pretty solid for being like a little
Out
bit
of mediocrity.
Out of mediocrity.
Yeah.
Listen, mediocrity gets you a lot in this world, apparently. So, if that's the case, that is the scores for the ethereal elves. And now it's time to do our overall rankings for the fiendish and frightening Fey of our intro's namesake. Joe, can you drop us the hot scores for this one?
The hot, stinking scores. In third place is Titania with a 4.7.
Which is not, the reason being, it's just the political intrigue of her polycule and all of the way
she's just too girl boss.
Too much going on.
Too much of a girl boss.
Too many moving pieces.
In second place, we have Elves at a 6.5.
Which, again, we haven't...
Mediocrity,
basically.
That's it.
Yeah.
And in first place is our guest choice, a 7.5 for the Dryad.
Woo! Ibrahim, you've made a phenomenal choice. And like we said, who hasn't wanted to fuck a tree? With that, we've come to another one end of an MFA episode. Some closing thoughts. Ibrahim, anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to say?
Go ahead and check out my Twitter at 97Ibrahim. There's an underscore in there somewhere. It doesn't really matter. Check me out on TikTok at Ibrahim_MA. Check me out on Prayers in the Static, which is every other Friday. Next episode coming out. I shouldn't date it. Every other Friday. It's a great sci-fi actual play. It's great. We're putting together a really interesting world. We're wrapping up Mothership, and then we're on to fucking Echo. It's going to be great. Join us. It'll be cool. At the Bards and Brews Twitch channel.
Wonderful. Joe, any closing thoughts?
Trussy. True pussy.
Nice.
Sap. That's pussy.
Sap it. Sap that trussy.
Sap trussy.
Sap that trussy. Let that trussy be sapping.
Maple tap.
I'm gonna tap that
I'm
fucking
gonna
trussy.
tap that trussy so hard. Fuck yeah.
That maple's gonna fucking drip down like sweet fucking pussy.
I'm gonna fucking trip it. That's it.
Bye.
Bye.